Welcome to the MHP CashFlow Podcast, where we dive deep into the world of mobile home park investing, real estate strategies, and building long-term passive income. Hosted by Garrett, Terrell, real estate investor, mobile home park operator, and founder of Rocket Capital Fund.
All right, everyone, welcome back to the MHP CashFlow Podcast. I'm your host, Garrett Terrell, and today I have an awesome guest, Mr. Jon Bartlett out of BSP Capital Holdings on the podcast. So, Jon, welcome, and thanks for coming on.
Definitely. Yeah, thanks for having me. So I love talking parks. It's all I do at parties, so it's not much fun for anybody but me. So,
Love it.
But yeah, it's a park party. Now we can talk about it. So
Yes. We love to talk mobile home parks. So awesome. So tell me first off how you got into the MHP space, how you got started on your first deal, what got you interested in mobile home parks, kind of give me the nucleus story.
Yeah, so off the start, it was probably a Bigger Pockets podcast talking about...
Welcome to the MHP CashFlow Podcast, where we dive deep into the world of mobile home park investing, real estate strategies, and building long-term passive income. Hosted by Garrett Terrell, real estate investor, mobile home park operator, and founder of Rocket Capital Fund.
It's a highly undervalued tool for everybody. Just go to the local one and just tell people I want to go buy a thing. I said, hey, I want to go buy one of these things. How do I get it? Who's also interested in doing this with me? So found some people that had cash and they wanted to do it. And I said, I have no cash to offer, but I offer time and I can go find the deal. So got the first one on contract, or the first part that we ended up buying. I was the one that got it on contract. And then instead of wholesaling it or something like that, I just said, hey, I'll stay on board as a partner and then I'll also do some other roles and responsibilities. So I got cut in at 12% on that first deal. And then nice. I got to say I was a park owner and made it a lot easier as soon as I got that first one under the belt. So that's why I tell literally everybody when they're like, how do I get into the space? Just be really honestly like, I don't have money, but I have time and I have reasonable amount of skill. And they're like, okay, great, let's partner. So that's all you need to do. And don't make it painful for everyone else to work with you. Like pre-digest it is what I say. Don't send that email without processing it all the way through. It's like, how do I make this as easy to read as possible? So just do that on first couple and it was pretty easy after that.
So you met your first investor or a couple of first investors at your local REI meetup. What market are you in, by the way?
Yeah, right now I'm down here in Warner Robins, Georgia. Georgia's is really good for mobile home parks. It's like one of the
You're
top
in Georgia.
Three, so, yeah.
Okay.
So actually moving to Colorado soon, but it's because I can do everything remote. So,
nice.
So Georgia was nice for the what I call the door lickers. It's like when you have to have it in your backyard. It's like, what are you going to go lick your property? It's like it's still going to be there. Like you can do it remotely, but everyone's like, I got to have it in my backyard. So that was good to happen to have the backyard of a million mobile home parks, and so that made it a lot easier for sure.
That's awesome. Yeah, there's a ton in Georgia, and I've seen actually some pretty good deals. So Warner Robins, now remind me, so I know Atlanta's sort of at the top. Warner Robins is kind of by Macon, Georgia. Is that correct?
Yep, that's right.
Okay.
Yep.
Cool.
So you got Atlanta, and then that's its own thing, and that's like kind of like New York in some ways. Yeah. So it's not always a good place to invest, but and then you also not bashing New York State. It's just really hard to invest in New York. So and then Macon and Warner Robins is south of that. What Warner Robins has going for it is it's like the best county from everybody in Atlanta. Like all the Atlanta investors want to buy in Warner Robins because the county, which is pronounced Houston, not Houston, it's Houston County, has like incredibly good schools. And then there's also a base, like a military base. So all the retirees from the base who are working there are making like $300K pretty easily because they're getting pension plus a job. So the economy is really good. Everyone's staying there and the schools are good. So it's like the best possible stimuli for growth. And that base is not getting shut down anytime soon. So you mix all these together, it makes it a really good single family market at least. But then that also pulls, all boats rise with a good tide. So
sounds like a great little market. And I've also heard of Warner Robins because I used to watch a Netflix show called Tykes, or like football Tykes. It's like apparently a very prominent youth football and high school football market, there's like a lot of the top teams in the nation come from there, right? Isn't that kind of what they're known for?
Yeah, apparently. Yeah, I'm not super big into like football for like the youth leagues or anything, but that's what I've heard is it's like, oh, this high school's got a rivalry, and it's like the USC and Gamecocks rivalry, and it's like, well, okay, it's high school, but whatever. So
yeah, no, high school football and football in general is big in the South. Same with Alabama, which is the majority of where our parks are, and it's like the NFL
baseball,
down there.
So.
Yeah, and baseball.
Yeah.
Awesome.
For sure. Yeah.
So you found
then where were you
with
your?
Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just saying, where were you? Were you normally out of? I forget.
I'm out of Phoenix, Arizona.
That's right. Okay. Yeah. And then how's the park market out there?
It's crazy expensive here. Crazy expensive. I mean, there's like institutional quality stuff that's 4 and 5 caps, maybe even 6 caps. But it's hard. It's hard to find parks out here. So I like to just live here and invest elsewhere because the yield is better.
Yeah.
But there's just no yield here. So there's just a lot of
Sure.
institutional money here for mobile home parks. I mean, you can get lucky on like the outskirts of Maricopa County, which is massive. But to get anything inside, I mean, you're competing with, very well capitalized individuals and companies. And so that's just not a tree that I want to bark up just yet. So I'm looking for yield right now. So yeah, that's
not a door licker. That's good. So
no,
buy anywhere. Yeah.
Well, anywhere, but it has to make sense. It has to be a good landlord state because I'm originally from Washington State, sadly. And Washington State is terrible.
That's a tough landlord one.
Terrible landlord state, great flipping state. Like I made a lot of money with single family fix and flip in Washington because it's just a high appreciating market, but it's a terrible landlord state. Like if your tenants don't pay, they can stay in there for like 9 months and you have to pay attorney fees and everything to get them out. It's like a process. It's like a really, really long process. And these people, like in Washington, they call it professional tenants because they know the landlord laws. And there was this viral story a couple years ago. I even saw it in the news. There was a squatter in Seattle that squatted in a 3,500 square foot older Queen Anne Seattle house. And the squatter wasn't paying any money, obviously. Got in, and they actually turned around and listed the house on Airbnb, and they were making like $7,500 a month net to them, and they weren't paying the landlord anything, and it took them like 2 years to get out. Like they were literally cash flowing on Airbnb every single month. It was like the most brilliant professional.
You get them on the
story.
Podcast, man.
Well, they're probably in jail right now.
Listen only on dark web,
Yeah, it was just a wild story.
Dang,
I think I posted on my Instagram like 2 years ago when it happened. I'm like, thank God we don't live in Washington. Like, thank God, because I personally will never invest in anything in a blue state again, just to protect myself. I mean, there's different political ideologies out there, but just to protect myself and the business that I'm in, I have to be in a red state. Like it's a business decision at that point, So yeah, man, it's crazy.
I mean, all ideologies are a spectrum, but when you apply it to a rental market, it's the spectrum of profit or loss. So it's like, it's not really a debate. It's like, it's like, do you want to get robbed? No. Okay, great. Then I'm not going to, invest in that state. So it's crazy how they actually like even like have property. The idea of like just property ownership is still existing still. It's like, I don't know how you get away with just 9 months of no pay, but somehow the institutional guys do it, I guess. But that's part of why it's a 4 cap probably. It's because just don't collect any rent. So
exactly. It's terrible, but awesome. So your first park. So tell me about your first park. How did you find the deal? How did you set it up? What did when did you buy it? Where was it? Kind of go through the specs of the deal.
Sure. So it was Warner Robins, Georgia, and near where I'm at, obviously. So the actual structure of it was just straight equity. So it was two partners would put in 150K each, roughly, and then they would get limited partner shares. And then also the limited partners had some general partner shares on top of that, depending on the roles and responsibilities. I didn't put any cash in, so I didn't get any limited partner shares, but I did get general partner shares. So syndication / straight equity, no loan associated with it, very cut and dry, or no loan amongst the partners. And then what we did is we took that 300K roughly. It was with a bank, but it's the 300K was then the cash the company needed, and then we did a 70% LTV roughly with a bank, and then 35% down maybe. I don't recall exactly. So something like that. So it was about $1 million purchase on the first one, and then it was a good kind of starter park of like, here's what we're doing. Here's how it works. Let's kind of understand. What do you mean there's no titles? That's a fun one. So
how many lots?
So common. But
how many
first
lots
one was technically 50. Technically 51, but really it was only like 33 because 20 of the lots can't be infilled because it's like a grandfathering clause. So that sucked. Nice. That happened on the first deal. But never made the mistake after that, that's for sure. But we actually knew that was a possibility, and we just closed anyway. So because we looked at it and we're like, this doesn't seem like we can make that work for infilling. So now the way we underwrite is we say, is the worst case scenario of the homes that are currently there, can we fix the ones that are currently there, not do any pro forma on bringing on extra lots, just the ones that are currently there? Would it still make sense? If the answer is yes, then we'll still consider it. So just be extra safe, because moving on homes is not fun. So
no, that's awesome. Yeah. So it seems, so that's funny. So your first deal was 33 units. That was my first deal as well. 33 units. It felt like that was like scary enough, but also like comfortable enough where it's like, I'm not going to take down like a 70 lot deal, my first deal. Cause that's pretty large, but like the 15 to 20, it's like, okay, it's, it seems kind of easy, but that 30 to 40, it seems like that's like a good little margin in there where it's, a little risky being it your first deal, but then, obviously there's enough upside in it to make sense. That's cool.
I got two partners that their first deal was 35 units. So it was four of us on that one. We did 35 units. We did negative down payment. Technically, that's a funny story. I'll get into in a second if you want. But and then it was like 2 months after that, I was like, okay, great. Here's 111 units. So they just got swamped all at once. I felt so. And I was like, are you guys sure you're good to handle this? And they're like, yeah, we can do it. I was like, all right,
Wow.
No, I'm very happy for them. I mean, they may be stressed about the amount of work on it now, but they're going to make a ton of money on that. I'm glad for them on that for sure. But that was funny. It's just like, there's 111 on top.
Yeah. 30,
we're good
30,
for it,
30,
so like, all right.
100. It's like, once you're in the three digits, that's a different animal. That's a different beast.
Yeah. No kidding. Yeah. That was just obscenely, the acquisition was stupid complicated because it was like the final exam of real estate for creative finance, because we had like every method involved. It was like a bank, plus some of it was cash, plus some of it was like seller finance, plus a loan assumption, and then like maybe there was sub 2, and I don't even know. It was just like 7 different parks, and it was just spread out really weird.
It took a village, basically.
But it was a final exam, man, for sure.
That's awesome. So when did you get started in the MHP space?
Yeah, that would have been August of 2022. So.
Wow.
And then we went under contract on that first one in March of 2022. So it was a very long, drawn out closing, but August of 2022.
So not too long ago.
Yeah, right? Actually, it was only about 2 years ago. Yeah, and I closed like pretty much everything within a 24-month time span, because we haven't bought a lot of stuff recently just because we've been like chilling out for a second. So it's been a while, 2 years. So actually most of that was in the last year. So
yeah, that's quick. I thought you were in it for at least 4 or 5 years. I'm technically at.
I think that's my total lifespan of the space is 4 or 5 years. So
okay,
it burns you out.
Oh yeah. Time goes really fast in this business. I got started in the residential real estate doing just agency stuff and fix and flip and just kind of easy active income like that. And everything's on 30, 60, and 90-day intervals. So you're focused on some deals, and then you're like, oh, it's quarter 1. Oh, now it's quarter 2. oh, now it's the fall. Oh, now it's the end of the year, and you're just maneuvering a few different deals. You're like, holy crap, 12 months just went by and I just did 6 fix and flips, like time just goes crazy fast.
It's pretty good tempo. Yeah, it's pretty good tempo there. I mean, it's I'd imagine that they're not all cosmetic flips, so that's certainly a lot of variability in there. But yeah, every 2 months, pretty good. So
yeah, our best year was 2020. So I started in real estate in 2018. Our best flipping year was 2020 and 2021, kind of right before the rates cooled off a little bit.
Sure.
But that year we did like 20 flips. And that was some of them were cosmetic, some of them were $100,000 remodels. It was very stressful, but I mean, we could do anything to the flip, post it, and it would sell for $15K over list price. Like it was hedge funds were buying like crazy. It was, now that's not the case. We have to look for yield in a higher rate environment market, and I think the rates are probably going to drop in the next 6 to 12 months. I mean, what do you think about the interest rates right now?
Go to Polymarket and see what the betting stats say on it. That's like crazy that we didn't think of that statistically before, because like that is the best way to get it. So
it really is.
There are models on there for what people bet on that are like more accurate than actual data collected. So it depends on what Polymarket says. If it says it's going to go down, it's probably going to go down. So I do think it's going to be pretty bullish. We'll see. I mean, not to get political, but like we'll see how the whole tariffs thing goes, and the intention with that is to also couple it with a no income tax.
Yes.
So we'll see what actually does make it all the way through Congress and everybody else. So that's going to be. I think we're in for a lot of macroeconomic change over the next 4 years. Hopefully, all for the better. But I think that's going to probably play the biggest factor in it. Actually, would be my thought, because a lot of these big military contractors actually take out a lot of debt, and that's going to usually be tied to the prime rate. So if that jacks up a lot, that means military budget goes up a lot, which kind of screws around the deficit, et cetera. So I think that's kind of like the lever they'll be pulling is, do we want to save our own budget? And I would think the answer is probably going to be yes, we want to save our own federal budget, so they're going to drop it for that reason as well. So 100%. I don't think it really has as much. I mean, there's a lot of factors that go into that, but that's my thesis. Obviously, I'm biased because I used to work in military like acquisitions like that. So that's who knows, man. I hope it goes down. It'd be great to refi everything. So
oh my gosh, I totally agree. I think what happened with the election is there's a lot of consumer confidence now, and I don't know if it's necessarily the data that's really going to change things, but it's really the consumer confidence. It is the vibe of the market is kind of what pushes it. I mean, in 2020, when the money was dirt cheap, I mean, the vibe of the market was, oh, we can spend 25, 50K extra because it's an extra, $20 a month. Who cares? That was the vibe. Yeah. And that's how it played out for like 14 months, And so I think the consumer confidence is high right now. I think we'll probably see at least a 25 to 50 basis point drop by June of next year. That's my prediction. I don't think we're going to get back to the 4 and 5% interest rates. I have a hard time believing that. I mean, there's some gurus and stuff out there that say that, but I think they're going to hover in that high 5 to low 6 range probably for the next year to year and a half. I think that's kind of a even ground, for the Fed. And I don't know. I just think that's where we're at, but I would love it because we can refi a lot of stuff, That's what we're hoping for. So yeah, I think we're definitely on the same page about that. So you bought your first park 2 years ago, 33 units. You got a couple partners. Were they all tenant-owned homes? Were they park-owned homes? What was kind of the layout?
Yeah, it was a mix on that one. So advantages of park-owned home, obviously, is more cash, and that's like the only advantage. So everything else is a lot of maintenance. So we try to get rid of them as fast as possible now. We usually just rent to own them off for 0 down payment, just come in and do a small amount for long term. We get like 84-month terms out of these sometimes on the RTO, and we do the RTO for just the home. We actually have lot rent separate so we can increase it. So that's the play that we do now. We don't like doing park-owned homes. And then the tenant-owned homes is really weird because the weirdest part is when you have to evict a tenant-owned home. Because then it's like, why do you? Everybody's different. It's like you got to drag it to a different parcel of land and leave it there, and it's like a whole thing there. So what we do is we just bake into our leases, and this isn't like always going to hold up in court. So it's like kind of a little bit of a scare tactic, but we basically say if you don't pay, this counts as a bill of sale for your trailer. And at least it's usually enough to be like, don't not pay us, just please pay. That's all we want. We don't actually want your trailer. But I don't think that really holds up in court. We're actually like working a thing with an attorney to see if we can get something that's a little bit more enforceable on that department. But along that axis is essentially what we do, or we just try to buy out the home if they don't, to settle the court fee or something like that. If they don't. So anyway, pros and cons of POH and TOH, but we just try to just go TOH is usually a lot easier. You just want to make sure you don't rent to own it off to a drug lord, because they're not going to have a hard time paying $500 a month or whatever. So. They have it in the budget, so know your tenants first. Don't just randomly RTO them off to everybody. So
and this is a common thing that I ask guests on the podcast, because I'm relatively new into the industry, so I have somewhat of a opinion about park-owned homes. My first park was park-owned homes, but I usually ask people if they're tenant-owned guys or park-owned guys. It seems like from the people that I've talked to, I mean, I've had roughly, I think you're the 9th or 10th guest on the podcast so far, but from the people that I've talked to, they buy the park-owned homes and they convert them into tenant-owned and to RTO.
Yep.
Is that kind of, and I know some people are only tenant-owned guys. Like they won't even look at a park-owned home park. Is that kind of your ideology too? Or will you look at the value add and say, hey, that's a good opportunity to be able to do that? Is that kind of what you do when you're underwriting?
Yeah, I mean, the only way we're going to look at it from, hey, let's hold on to this as a park-owned home park, is if it's like the 111 ones was like a ton of homes, right? So it's like, okay, we can cook in a fat rehab budget and repair maintenance schedule, and then see if that is something we can do. But the goal is still to RTO it off. So the way I've kind of noticed the numbers work is just underwrite it like it's a POH one, apply a high cap rate, don't drink your own Kool-Aid, call it 11 cap to be really pessimistic or whatever. Depends on your market. And then just RTO it off in the future, because it's like you're just looking to see, is the value there on day one? Because a 10 cap POH park roughly equates like a 7 cap TOH or whatever. Like the numbers actually still approximate out to be the same. So it's just two expressions of the same thing. So I think the whole POH versus TOH debate is kind of arbitrary, because it's the same thing. Like it's like, guys, we're not even here for the homes. Why are we talking about it? We're here for the land. Like that's what we want. So it's like, who cares? Like just rent it. Doesn't matter which way. So but I've kind of noticed it does tend to be the same roughly. It's more maintenance if you're doing POH. So, and it's more risk. So it's like just RTO it off, make it their problem, and just make sure that you're not RTOing out to someone that doesn't have any contractor skills or doesn't want to fix it at all. We put like C1, 2, 3 conditions, just like a house appraisal. We put that in our lease saying, hey, if you're going to RTO it, it has to be up to an equivalent of like a C2 or something like that, just to make sure it's like habitable. So otherwise we take it back and we RTO it off to somebody else. So
see, they're very similar. That's what I've seen so far. They're very similar in how they operate, but it's really just kind of, it's almost like a numbers game at that point. Because if you have a $700 park-owned home, the value add to that, logistically is just, cutting it in half. $350 lot rent, $350 RTO rent for, 84 months or 4 years or whatever it is. And now you have a more valuable park, but it's the same exact thing. That person's still paying $700 a month. You're just changing how it looks on paper, right?
Yep.
And so that was a different, ideology than I had at the start, because I'm like, wait, it's a value add to sell these back to the tenants and collect some type of payment and just charge them 20 or 30% of what the park owned home rent was. I was like, that doesn't make any sense, you know?
Yeah. So actually, the best, this is like tips and tricks for everybody that I don't know of a lot of people that do it like this, but this works really well with banks actually. So this is how we did that negative down payment one that I was telling you about. But the attorney was freaked out because he's like, only in America do you get paid to close. It was really weird. So we had a bank in first position for like, I want to say 65%, and then seller was second for 35%. But technically we had prorated rent as well, just because we could. So we prorated an extra month just so we didn't have to collect it for the first month. So we ended up getting a check back for closing. So that's how we structure is, bank first, seller second. But then what we did is we said bank is first, but only on the land. And then seller is second on the land, and then first on the homes. And the homes were basically 100% financed that way. So not only did we get in for technically negative, but now it's less risk for the bank. So now the only thing they have to sign off to is 65% LTV on just the land. So how do you parcel out what's land versus not? This is where it gets into the leases, is we said, hey, do you have leases? And the seller's like, no. We're like, well, this is actually a good thing, because what we're going to do is we're going to have this lease, and we're going to you're going to go get everyone on leases, and you're going to tell us how much is home rent and how much is lot rent. So that 700, the seller split that up before we even close the park. So then when the appraisal comes in and the lot rent happens to be 450 out of that 600, and then and that's only 150 for the home, we don't care what the home cash flow is collateralized at. We care about what the collateralization of cash flow for the lots are. So the bank appraisal came in at like over the asking price for the whole thing. So then we were able to just pass with flying colors, and then we did that twice. So it was great. So separate out your lot rent and your home rent on the pre-acquisition. It makes it a lot easier with the bank. And you can do the same thing with the management. You do the same thing with repairs. You do the same thing. Electric. How much is going to the home? How much is going to the tenant? Just try to parse everything out. We just treat it as two different entities that we're buying. And that was really easy. And the appraiser, especially when we're like, look at all these comps of like rent, just get all the comps for them in advance, and then just say, tell me I'm wrong, that the fair lot rent should be 450. This checks, right? This makes sense. Because otherwise it looks like, mortgage fraud. But if you're like, well, this is lot rent, and the appraiser came to this conclusion too, then it just makes it a little easier. So it's like you got to like trick them into helping themselves, I guess. But so we did that.
You got to make it easy.
It was killer. We're really getting a negative. So
that's huge. That is awesome. So how many communities do you own right now? How many total lots?
Lots is like 285 minus a couple of homes and like nice. Single families, and then like apartment units. It's probably like, I don't know, 270, 275 maybe. So
that's
most
a lot.
Of the parks. So
that's a lot. So that's like 140 a year, 130 a year since you started.
Yep, pretty much. Well, not to be like pat myself too much, but actually almost all that was actually in the last 12 months. So
really,
with the exception of the first park. So everything else was from September 2023, other than the first 33 units. So
that's amazing.
So it's been a rocket ship in the meantime. And then I didn't buy anything else after August just because it was just too crazy to schedule. So but we've been stabilizing everything and just trying to work with what we got right now before we go tackle on the next wave, which is coming here in probably about 2-3 months when we close these next ones. So
exactly. Love that plan.
Yeah, partners. That's the only way I do it. I don't buy personally. I know that I think you buy a lot of stuff just yourself, right?
So I have a couple partners. I have a main capital guy. That's awesome. And I'm basically the labor. I'm the sweat equity. I'm the deal finder, bank finder, on-site guy, management, operations. I'm like the whole horse basically. But I get funding from private capital guys and investors. So it's kind of a lean partnership is what it is. There's not like a bunch of chefs in the kitchen. It's just mainly me, my business partner, Ethan, who kind of helps with the management efficiencies and stuff like that. And then a couple capital guys, and that's it.
Okay. So 2 chefs and a couple ingredients. So, all right. Cool.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, we have a lot of chefs. So it's, we got, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 chefs.
Wow.
8, including me, I guess. So, yeah. Yeah, so our GP stuff. Now we only do 3 at a time on any deal. That's a general rule that we do. Is we don't. I mean, there's one deal we do 4 on, but everything else is only 3 on there. So
Nice.
just it's a little more stable dynamic we found. So it's
Nice.
tie breaks really quick. It's usually enough work to split up. Everyone has their own roles and responsibilities. So, and just like how I guess you got Ethan, who's just like more management stuff, we usually have one person designated, like you are the manager chef. That is your thing that you do. I'm the finance chef, and as well as like acquisition usually. So
Exactly.
but, yeah.
So walk me through your first 30 days after you acquire a park, right? Like, what are you doing? Let's say you're buying a park-owned home park. What does your first 30 days look like after you close?
We don't have to do anything usually because we get it prorated for the extra month. So, we get like 45 days prorated just to finish out the month plus a month. But no, we use that 1 month period to just kind of get everything ready to go. Make sure we're stress testing a couple different aspects before actual rent collection comes in. To getting all the utility stuff set up, obviously, secure all units. That's a big one. Data. That is the best thing ever. We keep for all parks, for every individual park, we have one spreadsheet. It's got all aspects of data on that one tab of that one spreadsheet, and we call that master unit data. Everything else reflects off of that. And I have a hard time sometimes getting everybody to comply to that, but it's like, it is the best practice ever. It's just keep it all next to each other. So it's like rehab quotes next to like the VIN number, next to the lot rent, like next to collections, next to everything, just one sheet to rule them all. And then we have a bunch of other supporting tabs. So we got all that stuff usually set up before we buy, but then we're going through and confirming all that data. And then, is the unit secured? We have a rehab quote if it needs it. Is the tenant in there? Is their contact information up to date? We go ahead and get the lease scanned, digitized, uploaded, and linked next to their name. We usually get that done in due diligence, but if we don't, then we'll just make sure we go get everyone on leases usually as well. So, and we try not to make the management company freak out too much with like, here's a bunch of stuff and you can go do a bunch of these tasks. But we're usually also holding their hand. We run them through a Google Sheet as well. So,
Nice.
So we say, hey, like this is your list of tasks for the week. Just go do these things. This is what we're doing as well to take it off your plate. That's what I try to tell them, or try to get the manager POC to tell them. So, so they know that we're trying to help them out. We're not just dumping them with a bunch of work. So.
So do you have?
And the code enforcement's been a recent one actually that we should probably add to a checklist. Is like on day one is go ahead and invite code enforcement out there rather than wait for it to happen because the last 2 parks we got, then code enforcement was out there in the first 30 days. And like, well, we could have seen this coming. Now we're the bad guys of code enforcement rather than like proactive. Yeah. So we're going to probably do that now going forward. So
gotcha. So are you running the management in house, or are you dishing that out to a third-party company?
Yeah, so it's always third-party company with the exception of one that we actually just switched over. And we had one of our partners now actually has a management company that's doing it. We had to do a lot of thought in order to make sure we're not going to get stuck in a weird situation that like a partner is also the company, but we got that handled. But normally it's third-party company, and then we have lots of backups already established in case they quit, fail, whatever. Then we already can immediately go into the next one, and we get the backups at the beginning. This is really important that we found is getting it done at the beginning, having the backups, not waiting until there's an issue, because it's a little weird if you're about to fire your manager and they see your ad for like, hey, we're looking for a manager. Yeah. It's like, well, you about to fire me? So we already get these backups well in advance, and then we have one point of one of our partners is the management point of contact. So they handle the manager, but if the manager is out or quits or fires, then they just immediately step in and they're just like a remote manager. So
gotcha.
And then until we hire another one and get them on board. So there's like multiple layers of redundancy just because that's a huge issue if you're remote on these, obviously. So
it's interesting. So you're using third-party management. I think you're the first guest to say that. Most guys are doing in-house management. I mean, they'll have some type of like on-site person, like a tenant that's the eyes and ears. That's pretty common. I've heard that from a lot of different people. But is that what you're doing? Is that what you're qualifying as a third-party manager? Or are you literally getting like a real estate brokerage that has a property management license and you're letting them do everything?
Yeah, there's there's a couple that are like straight up licensed like that, but like we pay like 10% fee. So like, whatever you categorize that as. So we try to take as much work off their plate because we looking around, I can see why a lot of people do in-house management is because it's really hard to get a manager on these properties because they are so quick to quit if they run into issues. So that's probably the key reason why, but we just take so many steps to keep that off their plate. So it's like, oh, you need us to handle eviction? Like, we'll try our best to handle it for you, and then we take that work off their plate. So it's like, please don't quit, So it gives us a lot of quality of life as a result. And that's also why we have our operating agreement on our company side between our partners set up that way so that we know who's doing what. So, nice. We usually we'll try to get a third party, but I mean, one of these, actually we had a bad third party manager and we're like, we need a manager quick, but actually we think this would be good if we incorporate our partner as the manager. I just see a lot of issues that most partners would probably run into with that, where you are having a partner who is the management company, but they're also like a percent partner. Yes, they're incentivized to work hard, but at the same time, if they suck, you can't fire them. So, and I'm like really like pessimistic with stuff unless you can explicitly have it done soundly in writing, and that's just a very difficult thing to get done in writing to account for all scenarios. So it's nothing ever personal against the partner. It's just like, how do you prevent a potentially corrupt partnership from occurring? So, and I think a lot of people fall in that pitfall. So,
yeah, no, that's a really good point. And I mean, I'm assuming if you're paying these management companies 10%, they're actually physically collecting rent, signing leases, showing home. Okay, so you don't have
they're doing a lot of work,
manager.
but we just try to help them as much as we can. Yeah.
Okay, so you guys are not running rent manager.
No, I mean we have we do some stuff like they can still send a complaint to us, I guess, for like one of the properties. They can still send a complaint to us, but if it goes through the they know to go talk to the manager first, basically. It's like if you have an issue with the manager, you come to us. But like there's very few things that actually trickle through to us. It's usually like, hey, I'll be late on my rent. It's like, tell the manager, great.
Yeah.
I don't care. Like, we'll evict you if you're wrong, if you're too late, but otherwise, thanks for the heads up, I guess. So, kind of a property by property basis. So, we're definitely ripe for like a total restructure across the board, but I think it's more of a, liquidate everything or like refi or figure out what we want to keep and then kind of restructure some things. So there's certainly better ways to do it, but I think our systems are already pretty efficient, all things considered. So, certainly can be better.
There's pros and cons to it, for sure. Because I mean, we've found success with rent manager, obviously, but the real trick that we've found out is eliminating 60 to 70% of the headache with the management with rent manager, like automating it, making sure that there's like a portal and a system for everything, and then we actually physically have somebody on site. Not necessarily a management company, but an individual. That could be a tenant. That could be just a local, real estate agent. It could be whoever. But we usually like to have somebody on site, at least the main point of contact. So we kind of do like a hybrid approach. Like we're not fully remote. We're not fully third party. It's kind of like a mixture of the two. And we've had really good success with it so far.
That's good.
So
I think that's usually like the best solution is kind of like the mixture a little bit, because if they're 100% in-house, like we don't like that because we don't have real awareness of what's going on, and especially like I know it's called the MHP CashFlow Podcast, but it's we're just value add. We don't care about cash flow. We're just like, let's just value add it. All cash flow gets reinvested. Yeah. Oh yeah. Only equity play. Like we're basically like a PE group of the way we run things. It's not like cash flow based. So because the internal rate of return is just so much higher. It's like if you can fix a thing and make 4x, or you disperse, it's like, why would I want 1,000 in my pocket when I could make 4,000 by leaving it in? So we just look at it from an equity approach, and that is hard for most people to do because they want to get paid. But like, if you can just be patient as long as possible, like there's significantly higher. So we see that usually year 3 is like the cutoff where it's like, okay, then you can cash flow it because it's all the way fixed up. But we've already made like $3 million in the meantime. So what do we care? It's like that is your cash flow. If you're like selling one of these every week or whatever, it's like, that's great cash flow, So it's really just equity flow is how we run it. But
so the equity play is a great play, because
that's the only thing we do. But so
it's because it's basically a fix and flip model. But there's also, I mean, you also have probably, I'm assuming, some cash flow like while you wait, you know, because you gotta get,
Yeah.
because you know, when in the fix and flip game, if you're doing that, it's a large influx of capital, and then it immediately goes out. I'm assuming it's the same with you guys in this model, is that you get a bunch of money, then it's out. Then you get a bunch of money, and then it's out. You know, you want to have at least a little bit of cash flow in there for a rainy day, or if it's a, you know, a weird month. You know, do you guys, is that how you're, like, are you buying these with hard money and just banking on appreciation and value add? Or are you somewhat cash flowing on these?
Yeah, no, I mean, we do have properties that actually like print too much money, so we have to do a disbursement because there's like nothing to do with it other than I guess we can continue to stack it and then like maybe go buy a bunch of units, but like we're just not interested in doing the extra value add. So our Kentucky property, which I know you're familiar with, so our Kentucky property is like, well, we could go buy extra trailers and go throw them on the lots, but like we just don't care. It's like it's not our focus. We don't really want to do that. It cash flows so much cash that we have to take a disbursement on it every month just to keep it down, and it just keeps creeping up. We're like, all right, take out more money, and that's fine.
Yeah.
So that occurs, but then the rest of them are usually like, okay, we had 2,000 cash in, or 3,000 or whatever was our NOI, you know, NOI minus cash minus debt service. So if we get like $3,000, great, let's go blow $3,000 in capex, and then we just try to break even it the whole way, and then it allows it to appreciate the actual, you know, inside of the trailers, or like maybe we're renting them out for more or whatever. So we did that with a South Carolina deal, and less than a year later, it's like we bought it for $520, and now it's like probably worth close to about $900, and the bank account's been the same the whole time. So it's like, so you know, if you look at equity flow on that, so to speak, that's 400,000 over, or 480 roughly. So $40K a month, you know, but that's better than whatever $3,000 we're going to pull out. It's like, well, I'd rather have 40K a month. And I know it's not $3,000 forever, but you know, I can redeploy this cash as a limited partner into some other deal in the future when I just want to not be in the active side. So, which I think is the end goal for everybody, by the way. That's like when you know everything of like how to do it correctly, at least 99% of the time, you know it. That's like, okay, you're the best LP at that point for sure. That's the move. So
yeah, it's delayed gratification. I mean, you're always going to get paid more when it's delayed gratification, you know, no matter what. I mean, there's deals that I wish I held on to over the years, you know, but I wasn't patient. And I wanted that money now. I wanted that money in 3 months. So it was a quick flip. But yeah, I totally get what you're saying with the equity play. It seems like it's a good model. You're probably the first guy on the podcast that has specifically focused on that, the equity play. Not too many people are doing it.
Yeah, it's hard, man. It's mentally really hard because I think I have a longer like perception horizon, maybe just because like the way I've maybe past experiences, whatever, outside of real estate. For what, you know, I think I have a slightly longer ability to see like, hey, this is what it's gonna be in 3 years, and be okay with that and make my peace with that. Like, hey, I'm not gonna earn anything for 3 years cash. But I think a lot of people freak out when it's been 6 months. They're like, I don't see any results. It's like, just be patient. Like, it will be there. So, like, I used to be a registered investment advisor. I do a lot of stuff with the government. When I was working with the government, I was basically like an investment advisor effectively. So, so it's a lot of like, hey, in 5, 10, 15 years, it's these things. So I think that like plays a little bit of a factor into it. But I'm always having to wrangle people and be like, please, equity only. Like, that's all we should care about. Like, just fix and flip. And then when it's fixed up, then we can cash flow it. But yeah, I mean, if we don't sell these, and it makes for really easy, you know, cash flows because we've already fixed everything the way we want it, and we already have high awareness of what's going on with it. But yeah, it's really mentally hard on most people, and that's why they just don't do it, I think. So, and it's not like cash flowing is it wrong. It's like we like doing the value add just because we want to hurt ourselves so that we make a lot of money really quickly. So
yes, and it's, you know, and I just love the fact that, you know, it's hedging your bets, because you might be able to refi in the future and get some money out too. You know, you're not just banking on getting the best debt and increasing rents and doing value add. You know, you're kind of giving yourself two options when you do that, which I like that. That's probably a good reminder for me because, you know, this is the MHP CashFlow podcast. I love the cash flow aspect to it because I came from a giant equity background where it was a lot of moving parts, but it was also very stressful couple months when I had $400,000 out in the market and I needed to pay the bills. I needed to put food on the table. It's very stressful. So I love the difference of it, but I think you can really do both, with the equity play. So let's get into that a little bit. So when you're looking to value add a park, what are you looking to do? What has been your best ROI on value add?
Well, raising rent's always best ROI, but we don't be bad landlords and raise it above market rent. That's certainly the easiest one to do. So I think that the metric on how we do that is I go off of internal comps and then I go off of external comps. And people are like, well, what the hell's an internal comp? It's well, if you have 50 units and you got one that's $89 a month next to $900 a month, and there's nothing different, it's okay, so I think you can increase. So the 111 units we bought was just like that. It was all over the place on the rent roll. It literally looked like they threw darts on a board and just that's your rent. So that's okay, level one is we're going to bring the bottom half up to the middle, and then the top half we're just going to increase a little bit, and then maybe the third quarter, I guess, we're going to increase a little more harshly. So then we try to stagger it out so that over 3 to 4 years, everyone's at where they're supposed to be at, but we don't want to make it excruciatingly painful for everyone in the meantime. We want to try to keep the tenants. So step one is just, okay, let's actually go through, and it takes forever if you're doing it for 100 units or something, but manually inputting, what rent am I going to put this person at in advance? I'm going to go ahead and predict what am I going to put them at. And I'm going to do that for every single one of them. It's insane how much cash is just locked up in that. Most people just fat finger. They're it's 400 this year and 500 next year. It's no. Item by item. Literally, if you do that, there's a lot of cash to be unlocked there. So, and we always try to stay below market rent because we hate having occupancy issues. We want them to stay with us. So, and that's why I say raising rent's good, but we're just undoing 20 years of negligence because nobody raised their rent. So. And we're negative on a $89 a month unit, obviously. So we're going to get rid of that ASAP. That, and then we find a lot of deals that are just weird OPEX, just 90% expense ratio. We're just well, that's stupid. We're going to put that to 40% quick. So, at a minimum, we usually call it 30 to 35 for a TOH and 35 to 40 for a POH. So, park, obviously. So, that's usually that's the first thing I look for is okay, can the internal comps all similar enough? And then second is then we just compare it off of HUD rent, and we do ratios based off of HUD fair market rent. So if HUD fair market rent for a one bed house is 900, then we do a certain percentage of 900, and we did that by taking a very large data pool of lot rents, and we compared all those to HUD market rent, and then we were able to derive that ratio. So that's kind of how we do that pretty quickly, but okay. It's just got to be intuitive and just manually inputting every single rent. And what's it going to be in 3 years? So
you're mainly looking for the immediate, the number one thing that you're looking for when you're doing a value add park is you're looking at what is the rental arbitrage.
Yes.
Where
that's the first item.
That's the first item you guys are looking for. So when you're underwriting, you're saying, hey, market lot rent is 400. It's now at 325. We have a $75 delta in there. That's what you guys are looking at mainly.
Yeah, usually it's a lot more than that. It's usually half of market rent technically, but that's usually kind of the thought process. Now we also realize that it's probably half off for a reason, right? It's probably a ton of management issues. There's probably a ton of trash all over the park. There's probably a ton of vacancies, and then we have to be more pessimistic on those. So we don't raise rent on tenants without doing something in exchange first usually. So just because that's how they hate you, it's not hard to have that happen. So and they're oh, we hate the landlords. It's I swear we're doing this better than anybody else possibly could, because Wall Street would come in here and just torpedo your house and you're done. They're just going to call your lot rent 1,000. You're screwed. So so we try to do a really good job on that and not make it painful. So
are you going in and cleaning up garbage, throwing down gravel, pressure washing trailers? Are you actually getting in there and doing that, or is it more so of a financial value add where you're billing back some of these tenants the water or garbage or whatever it is? Or are you doing a mixture?
Yeah, it's a mixture. It's usually first so we budget for year one is going to be a managerial / financial rehab, right? It's let's flip the company of it. And then year two is usually okay, now let's just max it out. And then usually between the two of those, after 2 to 3 years, depending on the size of the project. There's not a lot of value add left at that point. So then we could cash flow it, I guess. But yeah, it just depends. So like we have like a Kentucky one, again, I know you're familiar with that one. That's just like we did financial on that first, right? And managerial issues. Like all that got rectified. That's phase one. We're done on that. So we could max it all the way out. We we usually don't like pressure wash or maintain stuff for like tenant-owned trailers because it's their responsibility. But if it were like park owner, where you go do all the 9 yards, like pressure wash, paint, wall, floor, et cetera, do all that type of stuff. But it's literally line by line looking at every single possible action we could do. It's like, how much does this action cost and how much will it earn us? And then we do an individual ROIC on every single task. And like the top ones are usually like 50x on cash. It's like, it's like send this one email in order to get the right manager. It's like, that's like infinite return basically. But then it's like, okay, do we want to put a new trailer on that lot? It's like, well, that's maybe a 2 to 3x. And I know most like passive investors would be like, oh my God, 3x, like, it's not very good in our book. So the internal rate is always like 20x or something like that. So we just try to knock out of those like high return on invested capital items first in year one, and then year two is usually all the like, hey, let's go, button it all the way up, get every single piece of garbage. Let's go, really meticulously pump all the septic tanks just because we can, even though they're not due. It's just like, let's just do it anyway, just get peace of mind. So that's usually a year two item. So.
Okay. Very nice.
I'm speaking a lot of pro forma because, again, I've only owned these for like a year or two, so for a couple of these. So this is all like in the plan, I suppose. But you don't do the cart before the horse. You do big items first. So.
No, I like that. I like that. I think definitely the operational value add is huge. And same with I mean, in my opinion, I think like a perfect park, perfect value add park is a bunch of vacant park owned homes that are salvageable. I've seen a lot that are, we were looking at this one deal in Alabama, vacant park owned homes, like great value add. I was like, man, this on paper, this looks like $1 million deal, like a home run deal. I go out to the vacant park owned homes. There's like trees growing inside of them and stuff. And it's like completely overgrown. Nobody's touched it in 20 years. I'm like, oh, that's why he wants this price. I'm like, we're not going to buy that. But something that's, something that's salvageable. I think that's a perfect value add for a park, to be able to sell homes. How are you guys selling your homes? Is it on Facebook Marketplace? Or are you just posting on Zillow? What are you guys doing?
Yeah, Facebook Marketplace is a good one. Just listing them for rent, listing them also for sale. Just putting all the keywords: seller finance, owner finance. Do all that in the bios, obviously. Yeah. And then Facebook Marketplace is good. Honestly, if our manager's good, then we'll just kind of know enough people. A lot of the tenants sometimes want to buy them. Sometimes we just give them away for free and we don't even RTO them. We're just like, just get it gone, just pay us lot rent. That's all we want anyway. So because the actual RTO note value is like, kind of negligible depending on the deal size. So it's like, who cares about $25K of accounts receivable? It's like it just added $40K by having an operational lot. Who cares? So so that's good. We'll try to get like the contractor types and just offer them to them. So we got one guy who's we said, hey, you can have this trailer for free if you fix up 5 and 5 trailers, and you get to keep yours. And it's like, wow, what a deal. And it's like, great, we just got incredibly $5,000 rehab for 5 trailers. That's pretty good. So
that's a huge value add.
Yeah, and it's like $25K of accounts receivables that we're getting today, and like so we just try to do like some like little arbitrage deals like that of just kind of trying to solve everybody's problem like that. So
let's talk infill really quick. So I know a few guys that do a lot of infill, more so institutional guys. What are your thoughts on infill? Because I have my own ideas about it, but I wanted to get your opinion on it first.
Yeah, it's hard to have a tenant want to move on there because tenants don't usually move their homes, I've noticed. So they just kind of own them in a park, and then the park's the HOA. So it's I think we've only had like 3 ever, but we also don't really market it. That's probably our issue, is because we're so focused on let's just do all those year one high ROIC type of items. It doesn't scratch it's not really worth even doing all those types of items in order to get the home on there. Usually, there's other more pressing items on there. So what we have done that works is we'll say, hey, we'll do free lot rent for X amount of time, or we just market it well enough, or we do, hey, $200 credit if you get a buddy to move in here. But I think in theory, the best way to do it would be probably just to buy a home, move it on, fix it up, and then RTO it off. That's a very dependable way, because you're not waiting around for, okay, maybe somebody's going to contact us and move on. Because like that's a lot of cash from the tenant, and then you're making somebody who's already not super high on the economic totem pole, you're making them fork out $3,000, or you're just not getting paid. One of the two. So it's like, or you're paying their moving fee and then you give them free lot rent. It just depends. So don't expect that person to pay rent for a minute. It's like that's not good. And then you might have to evict them. So it's like, why not just RTO it off? And because of that, that's why I think RTO is better, because if they violate the terms of the RTO, you can just boot them out and then you own the trailer. So so I think that would probably be the better move, is just buy them for $5,000 on Facebook, move them on there for $2,000, fix them up for $5,000, and then RTO it off. So
that's exactly that's exactly what I was about to say, because I know some guys that will buy like $50,000 trailers, move it onto a vacant lot, and mind you, it's in a little bit better of a market than some of these smaller tertiary ones, but still they'll buy a $50,000, $60,000 Clayton home and move it on, get it all hooked up, it's all nice and pretty, and then they'll literally try to sell it, for like 85 grand, 90 grand, and then they have to price reduce it, and then they have to do seller financing because it's overpriced. And I'm like, but you also have all that CapEx out on the deal. I'm like, man, that just sounds stressful. That sounds extremely stressful.
Not a very good return.
And not a good return.
You want to spend $50K and maybe get a little bit of money, or and granted, maybe they're getting financing on it, but still, it's just another hoop. Or even if you did like the one I was talking about, where you buy it and then move it on, it's like that's 17 cash that we're out, just so that we can maybe sell this at $40K a lot. That's not a good return on that. So because there's already value in just it being dirt, so it's already worth 17K. So we don't need to spend another 17K just to so that's why we just don't usually get around to that part yet. But a couple of the ones that, as they reach their into maturity cycle, and if we're still holding on to them for whatever reason, then that's when we typically start to fill in a couple. So we had that with our Warner Robins one. We just didn't get around to getting that one sold on schedule the first go round, so now we're under contract to sell that one now, but it's just we got more pressing issues usually. So
it seems like
definitely easy way to like shock the system with chlorine is just like buy a bunch of trailers. It's just, I mean, that could be a totally legit play. It's just not our style.
Oh yeah. So. Yeah, I mean, I think the kind of the best way to do it is to buy the $5,000 to $10,000 trailers, do a cheap move on, do a basic light cosmetic rehab, paint and floors, a couple thousand in, you're in and out in a couple weeks, list it on Facebook Marketplace for seller finance, and sell it and get, collect some type of down payment, do the lot rent and the RTO. I think that's the best way to do it, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if we had spare liquidity on a couple of these parks, just because we keep all the accounts separate, then I think we could probably do that. But one disadvantage of working with different groups of partners is you can't combine resources as easily like that. So, if I'm look at my Wells Fargo for across the board, we got a couple 6 figures, but it's like per deal, it's like only a couple 5 figures. There's like not as much. So we can't like just cross pollinate as easily. But the way you guys got it set up is good, because then you can pull cash from one and deploy it in another. So that is certainly an advantage that you have that I would exercise a lot if I were you, is just throw cash around, so you can, just because you can, and then you can go do a bunch of trailer flips like that, or not flips, flip the lot at least,
Yeah, 100%. So before we wrap up, let's talk about your best deal. This is where you can brag for a second. Tell us about your very best deal. Like
so many.
There's so many to choose from. No, the best one, the number one.
Dang. They're all good, and they all have issues as well at the same time. Probably the Kentucky one, just because it was $0 down, and we had a really good interest on it, and then we just did a ton of value add for no money, basically. That's probably like on a metrics basis, that one. just for us because we didn't have to raise any cash. We literally just self-funded because it's easy to fund $0. So,
Yeah.
but not to talk about two different deals, but I think the more relevant one though is at the 111 is that was good because we got a perfect storm of issues on it from the seller side. He had terrible records. We had to rebuild the business just to buy it. And that one's going. We bought for 2.1 mil with about 600K in. And we will probably exit that one at around 7.5 mil. So that's
nice.
Quite a bit of value add for not a lot of cash in relatively. So
huge.
Where is
that deal?
Cash. That's in Georgia and also Alabama. It spans across.
Oh.
So
okay,
yeah, a whole bunch of different little parks there. But then we're working on a $1,000 lot deal too. So don't ask me to brag. I'll keep talking. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, no, we got some really weird scenarios. I feel like we every time it's like just so oddly uniquely different. There's like something crazy good, and there's also usually something that couples it. So, yeah. I don't know what it is about like way we're buying. We get into the weird scenarios very quickly.
So how are you sourcing your deals?
Yeah, usually is I am trying to work strategy on the actual parks. We have another partner that's typically doing the operations mostly, and then another person who's doing more of just the lead generation. So he just pretty much looks at all the parks every single day. The way I'm getting into market. Doing it now, yeah, on market usually. We also find a lot of off market ones through Facebook. Yeah. Well, here's my thesis on it. It's really simple. Yeah. It's like, why would you want to call and pitch a bunch of offers, a bunch of people that don't know what value they want, who may or may not be in a position to sell, who might even want to may or may not even want to take your phone call versus just pay the damn 6%. Then you can just, now you know what you're dealing with. So, because if we're talking value add, that's where the money's at. Is the guy who's selling the park that's all screwed up for dirt cheap, and he knows it sucks, and nobody else wants to tackle it because that was like our 111. Nobody wants to tackle it except we did, and we figured out how to structure it the right way because nobody else could figure out how to get into the deal but due to the way his 3 ownership companies were structured on that, it was like freaking impossible Rubik's Cube to solve, but we just stared at it long enough, even though it's on market, but we just happened to come up with a unique solution that nobody else did and allowed us to get in the door for only 600. So, it was just,
that's huge.
So there's always good opportunities on market. So,
it's a lot easier to look at deals, though. My first deal was on market. And that's like that's what kind of got me into the industry was, it was a broker sent it to me. It was posted. There was a ton of offers on it, and I won it somehow, by the grace of God, won it. And that's like the trophy property that, really made me fall in love with the industry, So there's definitely value in getting on market deals. Surprisingly enough, the last 6 months or so, we've done a lot of off-market direct-to-seller stuff. Mm-hmm. And you are right. There's a lot of people that don't want to take the call. They are clueless about value. I mean, there was this one deal we were sourcing in North Carolina. It was 10 lots, and the guy wanted like 3.5 million. And I'm like, man, we're not even like on the same planet. Like I can give you an offer, like a legit offer, but I'm not even going to waste my time, Yeah. And he was like, okay, well, I'm never selling it. So that's probably why, probably why he said that. But we've actually sourced quite a bit of off-market deals, like very, very good deals. In August, so a couple months ago, we had a kind of a package of a bunch of small mobile home parks in Alabama, stuff that just didn't really fit our criteria that we wanted to buy. We were like, maybe we should wholesale these. Maybe we should send them out. And I kid you not, I just made a couple Facebook posts on some groups, and we literally sold 3 parks in 30 days. Nice. And they were all cash deals, and we made a large amount of assignment fees on those, and it was awesome. So I'm like, holy crap, it's working. The off-market stuff is working. But we also have a couple purchases in the pipeline right now too. So we have we're buying 34 units right now in Prattville, Alabama. If you know where Prattville is, it's right outside of Montgomery. Direct to seller for $650,000.
Sorry, how many lots again? 40 or 34?
34.
Yeah, and that 20K a lot is pretty good. Or
20K a pad.
18 or something, yeah.
$400 lot rents.
Yeah. Wow, nice.
And
Well
yeah. So that one we're really excited about. That one's actually closing next week or the week after.
Yeah.
One of the two. Very excited about that one. And then what we've also utilized too is broker relationships.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if you guys do that or your lead generation guy does that. But we've actually gotten very good deals just from brokers sending it to us. Has that been your guys' experience, or is it literally just all on market?
Yeah, no, it's one of them was through a broker getting back with us. Usually if you tell them like, hey, I want seller finance, here's what it is. It's just, it gets weird when you're trying to get sub 6% entry, then it's like, how do you do that with an agent? So, I mean, the only way to do it is with a bank, and I just don't want to be going to a bank every time. So, that's kind of the reason why we don't always do through agent like that. But there's seller carryback and some ways around that, but you just got to get them on board. Anyway, long story short is yes, but we a lot of times will be doing the outreach to the sellers that we can spot are, hey, they've been on market forever, or they're just, we have the full access to the financials up front and we just can run the model very, very quickly and figure it out. So
love it.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think agents are always like, not all agents are good. I mean, there are a lot of really good agents out there for sure. So, but it's also hard to explain to them your investment philosophy and like, here's why this is better. Yes, if we do seller second carry, this is best. Here's the reason why. Yes, let's do master lease purchase option for no money. And they're like, well, I don't understand why. It's like, this is the best freaking offer you'll ever get. So, it's just a lot of like convincing versus, hey, we're your only offer. And they're like, oh, please. So it's like, I don't know how to find those agents super well. Like, how do I find the not good agents? It's like
with on-market deals,
that would be the way to do it, I guess. So, not talking bad about all the agents we bought from, but
well, I mean, 20. Tough. I mean, the 80-20 rule. 80% of the agents don't have a clue what they're doing. 20% do all the business. But
20% do 80% of the work. Yeah.
What I've found is, really with on-market deals and with deals involving an agent, because we're doing an off-market deal right now where the agent, it's like a pocket listing, he's still getting a commission and everything.
Yeah.
We have to convince two people. Yeah. We have to convince the agent that this is a good opportunity and a good deal and this is what we need to do. We also got to convince the seller.
Yeah.
So we've found that it's a little bit easier when we're direct to seller, but it's more risk because we have that marketing cost, So it's kind of, you could look at the agent fee versus the marketing costs and it all kind of evens out at the end of the day, what we've found.
We try not to even talk through the agent. We just like, give me the seller. Like, it's like, and usually how we get through is like, hey, I have one or two really nuanced questions and I might think of more. Can I just get on the phone with three-way and the seller? And then when we're on the phone with the seller, it's like, hey, do you want to hear terms? And then just go ahead and pitch it right there. And it's like bypass. And then the agent doesn't really care because usually they're on board, or we'll just tell them in advance, hey, we want to ask questions, but we're going to present a very complicated offer that is actually quite simple. It's best if we just explain it.
Yeah.
We're giving you a heads up. We're going to explain it, and we're not going through you on this. You can be on the phone call, but like we're not trying to explain telephone tag here. It's just like, here's the thing. So, and then sometimes agents aren't helpful. Like we had one where agents going to bat, trying to renegotiate terms constantly, and I had to call them and I had to be swearing a little bit. I was like, dude, this is freaking ridiculous. Drawing a line in the sand. We're giving you three things in a row. Where's our cheese? It's like quit making it hard on the seller. Like, just give us the freaking deal. Like we agreed on this, sign. Like that's it. There's no discussion. You're not the seller. You don't need to be like, you have to present the deal to them as well legally. And so they can muddle it up sometimes, but usually they're beneficial because they're like the softer, more curated touch of what we're trying to explain. Yeah. So it's just the really weird ones, or when the seller hears like, I get no money, it's like, that's right, you get zero. But here's why it's good. So
awesome, man. Well, cool. Let's wrap this up, dude. That was awesome. Where can people find you if they're listening right now and they're from Warner Robins or Colorado? Where can people reach out and find you?
Yeah, I don't have a very good social media presence. I'm working on it because I can see that's key for real estate. So it's going to be at Presaling, which is Presaling. And what we're trying to set up there is something that's going to be like blue chip quality deals that are the craziest deals that people have ever seen, that they're going to be wanting to get the second go around, because that's usually our best feedback from limited partners that don't invest, is they say, please give me the next one. I should have believed you. So they're like, all right, I need to make a really good social for this. So yeah, we try to do really good deals. We don't try to peddle garbage. So
that's awesome. Very cool. Well, dude, thanks for hopping on. Thanks for sharing your story. Definitely relate to a lot of it, and I think people are going to get a lot of value out of today.
That's good.
So, yeah, thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, you guys. Well, that's the end of this episode. If you are interested in investing in mobile home parks, make sure to go to rocketcapital.fund. Reach out to me. We'll have a conversation. If you listen to the podcast and you liked it, make sure to like and subscribe. Leave a comment. And we will see you in the next episode.